Hello and welcome to Under the Sticks, presented by Big Red Cloud. My name is Andy McGeady. Visit www.bigredcloud.com for all your online accounting needs. For once in our lives, we are going out live. This could go viciously and savagely wrong. Joining me today on the journey, I have Mr. Paul Williams. How are you?
Hello, gentlemen. How are you?
Pretty good. Sean Holley is here.
How you doing, Ant? Yeah, good to be back live. How exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting. Mildly terrifying. Adam, how are you?
I'm good. Don't mind me. I'm just doing all the behind the scenes stuff here at the moment. You good gents, chat amongst yourselves.
Yeah, Spielberg.
A little bit. Yeah. Paul? How are you doing?
Yeah, really well, thank you. Another Corona week down.
Yeah. How's the haircut situation?
Bad. I've moved through the sort of paedophile stage and now into the early serial killer. Yeah, like I tweeted this week, so not when they were known for the murders, but, when they were still holding down a job and people just said, oh, he's a bit quiet. I sort of look like that. But the house is starting to smell. That sort of look. Bit long and a bit unkempt.
Okay. Holley, that's a low bar to clear.
It is a low bar to clear, but I'm pretty low on myself because I've been doing this 2.6 challenge, bit of physical effort daily. I'm only doing a marathon a day on a turbo bike, but still I'm going pretty hard and doing it for 10 days. But it's keeping me fit, but pretty tired. But nah, all right. Apart from that, family's good.
And a bit of wax in the hair.
Yeah, much needed to just sort of bring it together, reduce it from a Leo Sayer to more of a, I don't know, Morton Harkett.
It's a bit like Soul Glow from Trading Places tonight.
Yes,
it's got that nice sheen.
It definitely got a bit of sheen on there tonight, but it's under control. Daily, it's not.
Looking good.
No, I like it. Yeah, so some housekeeping for anyone who hasn't seen or heard us before. The email address for the show is underthesticks@pro14rugby.org. So hit us up with anything you like. That is the end of housekeeping. Today on the show, we've asked how we're doing. We're going to touch on a few things. Big announcement from France this week about live sport and contact sport. Dave Rennie and Tim Horan have been talking. We'll talk about that. Sean Holley's been busy doing some analysis. There's some draft work being done. A very American-style article appeared on the Pro 14 website this week. Yeah. We'll touch on that. Opta have been doing some work with the top 10 players of the season. Might get stuck in there. There is What's Weird this week with our resident, as yet, uncaught killer. We've had a look for some of our non-sports books. A couple of weeks ago, we looked at what we were reading sports-wise, any really good things. This is about non-sports things because we've probably burned through enough sport for a while. And if you're out there live, ping in a listener question. Our glamorous director, Mr. Redmond, will be shepherding some of these, won't you?
Well, put something in the comments, and glad to say we've already got some comments. So first one directed at Paul, just cut it all off, Paul. And the second one also directed at Paul. The smell of his many victims is under the floorboards.
No, it's going down well. It's a good start to a rugby pod.
Yeah, that is good. So first thing, this is the thing we're trying to suffer from in a rugby pod. There is very little rugby, but there was a bit of rugby news that came through before we recorded last week that it is important we mention. The EPCR gave a 1-month ban to Munster player James Cronin for a quote-unquote unintentional anti-doping violation. So we're obviously not going to offer comment or judgment about that. But the interesting point to note, if you have actually tuned out from a lot of day-to-day rugby news, is that Sport Ireland might appeal this. And why they might appeal this is apparently because of the leniency of the ban. So this would be 1 month served effectively when there's no rugby on. And even if there was rugby on, 1 month is an interesting suspension. So there's a lot of backstory in there. We're not going to offer too much comment. But in case this comes back around, I want you to know that we are paying attention to this one. Okay, it's interesting. Next bit of news is our news from France. No rugby, no team or contact sport until September. Now, we have a top 14 season to finish, just like every other competition, but the top 14 also starts early. So they'd usually be on the field playing real games in August.
It's normally started by now, the new one.
Yeah. Sean, this is a real problem for European rugby because just like the Guinness Pro 14 has multiple countries, so does European rugby. And for France to be making the statement right now, that sends a signal.
Huge signal, isn't it? And me personally, I welcome it. I think we're all in a state of unknown, second guessing when we're going to be able to play golf, go fishing, tennis, as Paul likes to do. But, in all honesty, it doesn't seem like that any of the Champions Cup is going to be fulfilled because it's just too close. So at least they've come out and said that. It's not just that it affects, of course, under 20s World Championships, France are the reigning champions, double champions. So, that's probably going to go now. It was meant to be in Italy anyway, so it was very much the end of that. So, as you rightly say, the issue is the start of the next season. So with France and the top 14 starting so early, that is a massive issue, I think, because then you're into all sorts of permutations, not just for this season, but for next season. So, and the question is whether somebody will follow, because everybody's sort of jockeying for position, aren't they? What are everybody else doing? But if somebody's come out like France have and said, no, that's that, is somebody else going to come out and just follow in behind it?
Paul, to you.
Yeah, I think it's the right thing to do as well. If only because now you can plan for what happens after that. So you can mothball everything now officially. So you can there's a lot of things involved here. It's not just about the rugby. You can mothball, you can start saving money, you can start planning for what you're going to do come September. And I think, like I mentioned last week, it's a good one of probably the only upside really is that the players will be fully rested. This will be the longest break most of them have ever had since they've been professional players. Particularly in the top 14, where you are paid and you are given that pound of flesh. There aren't many breaks in that league. You're expected to earn your £500,000. There are no breaks. You are playing flat out. So I think for the players in that league, it'll be the biggest holiday, the biggest breather their bodies have had in a long time. The upside might be that the quality of rugby is already very good. It might be even better next season. So I think there are upsides to it. We all know this season is largely over. So, I think that's a good move. Get on with it and move on to the next chunk.
So if this season is over, right, how do we decide who wins the various titles, or just do we declare them null and void? Like, is there any satisfactory solution here?
No.
I do jump in and say that this is going to really differ by territory. And it's interesting what Sean says. We might see other people follow. Well, what we're going to see now very soon is we're probably going to see Bundesliga football kick off in Germany behind closed doors. We are more than likely going to see probably football kick off in Italy at some point, probably in June, if we're reading the tea leaves as they are at the moment. So some sports will lead the way and other countries may lead the way. So France are the ones who've turned around and said, right, we're not doing, no team sports, not even behind closed doors, etc. Other countries will have a different stance. Other sports will have different stances. And when you talk about Europe and when you talk about the Guinness Pro 14, again, very unique because cross-border competitions, etc. So, I mean, for something like the Champions Cup, yes, there's a possibility you can play off those games maybe in October. There's some discussion around will there be internationals slotted into October as well. As yet, we don't know that. In the Guinness Pro 14, we have a number of options that we're finalizing at the moment. But different countries will effectively come online at different times, and different sports will lead the way. So if the Premier League and professional football gets up and running in England, then what's the situation in Wales? And likewise in other parts of the UK, is there a difference between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland in terms of what's allowed, what's not allowed? There's already speculation that the Irish provinces will be allowed to train from the middle of next month in May, and that Ulster may set up a training base in Dundalk, which is just over the border from the north into the south, so that they're able to do training where they may not be allowed to do that under whatever rules are in place in the UK. So it's incredibly fascinating to see what will happen. The only thing I would say is in some shape or form, there is going to be a big onus on a lot of sporting competitions to find a sporting way to finalize proceedings for this season. We've had a couple of questions pop in the comments as well. How does it work in terms of who qualifies for Europe, who wins titles? I think just turning around and handing out trophies is really the very, very last resort when it comes to all of this. But I would imagine for rugby, we probably will have a much more clear line of sight in the next 3 to 4 weeks, because we'll know what's going on in a lot of these countries. And don't forget, World Rugby are going to play a massive role in this, because we've got to figure out how to reset the calendar over the next 2 years probably, and to fit in the various competitions, and whether we're going to double up on international windows, how the club seasons will work with international windows and stuff. And I don't know if I mentioned it previously on the pod, maybe I have, but I mean, certainly the hope within rugby circles is, because everyone is now talking to each other on a scale that's never happened before and working together, that actually, a coherent, efficient global season may actually be the byproduct of everybody trying to figure out how to navigate the scenario that COVID-19 has placed on the entire world.
Yeah, so I think what's really interesting about the top 14 going first is that they are probably the league that's most flush with cash. So they are able to make that decision quicker. So, they're not exactly scrapping around for pennies in that league. So I think their margin for how many games they can afford not to play is probably bigger than maybe other leagues.
You mean through the sugar daddy lens?
Well, yeah.
Bit of a cushion.
And the big TV deals,
Canal Plus.
Their TV deals are massive. They have got money under the bed, whereas some other leagues don't really have that cash. So it's interesting that they've obviously decided to do it first, because they've got that luxury.
We do need to step back a bit, though, because I did mention at the top that Dave Rennie had been busy. So Dave Rennie was given some interviews this week where he reckoned that actually it would be a good idea just to give Leinster the title. They haven't lost a game. Give them the title, move on with their lives. It's probably fair to say that mightn't be a universally held view. Sean?
No, whoa, yeah, no.
That's Holley under the bus.
Yeah, you can't go giving. You can't just go giving. Yes, Leinster are unbeaten and they are the team to beat and so on. But let me tell you something now. I was involved in 3 seasons of outright winning a league in England, and had to go through 3 years of playoff systems where 2 years we lost, irrespective of being. So it's not over until the said lady has sung.
That's a great point.
Unfortunately, this is a tragic time, but we can't second guess that Leinster will go on and win the Guinness Pro 14. I refer you back to 2010 when the Ospreys came from behind, went to the RDS and beat Leinster. Connacht came from behind and won the title. You've got other teams that peak towards the end of the season and sometimes prepare for that if they're involved in a number of other different competitions. So I don't think we can give Leinster the title. I don't think we can give Liverpool the title either. That's going to upset a lot of people out there.
Do you know what? That's a really good point that you've made there, because in a one-off game, in a neutral fixture, anything can happen, right? Like you say. But then the other big point is now that Leinster have obviously got the biggest squad depth and always do throughout the season. Whereas if, say, I don't know, if it was the Scarlets or whoever met them in the final, whoever that would be, they would have their squad back together now, full and fit. So bar the really, really long-term injuries. So in a way, it is a more level playing field. If you decided there would be a semi-final and a final, those squads now would arguably, because of Corona, be in a better shape to play the likes of Leinster. So, yeah, you are right. I hadn't thought of it like that until you'd mentioned it. I was all for that, this is over, let's just crown the best. But like you say, it's different in the Premier League of football because they don't have that final scenario. Whereas we do in the Pro 14. Yeah, that's totally changed my mind. I'm glad it came on now.
So it would be easier because if the Guinness Pro 14 was a straight if you finish top of the table, then you're the champion. It would probably be an easier argument to make to say, look, Leinster are top, they're unbeaten. Because even if you combine the table, like they're so far ahead. But we've got used to having playoffs now. Okay. But what's the minimum would you think we'd accept?
Mathematically impossible.
Yeah.
I haven't been a sportsman all my life, and coaching guys to win. Then it's, as I said, it's not over until the said lady sings, because you've got to be in it. You've got to fight to the end. You could have a last punch in the last second of the last round, and that's sport. Until it's mathematically impossible, then why else are we in it? That would be my view. It's just an old school value of mine. Look, Leinster are way clear. In all likelihood, they would get to the final, but on the day, it's all on the day. And I refer back to the football. Liverpool, they've been the best team, haven't they? And we don't want to talk too much football, but until it's mathematically possible, if they can go that many games unbeaten, who's to say they couldn't go that many games losing? Sport's a funny thing. But I'm not a big one for giving trophies out when things haven't been completed.
Do you know what? What I would say though is I'd rather that Leinster were given it than nobody was. So if it went down as like in my rugby club and in most rugby clubs in Wales, when you look at the winners board, it's always, or the captain's board rather, it's always, whatever year it was, no rugby war. I'd rather that Leinster were given it this season.
Are we going to give England the Six Nations?
Oh, that's a very, very different question.
It's not. It's the same question.
No, I know.
It's exactly the same thing.
No, I know.
We're going to give Lewis Hamilton the World Formula One champ after 2 races. No, we're not.
Here's the big one about the Six Nations.
It's a shorter format, isn't it? And
they will do anything commercially to finish that. Anything. Yeah. There's just too much money, right?
I think the difference
which is part of the equation.
Yeah, but the Six Nations is a short tournament where a couple of wins and anything can happen. Whereas Leinster, I think, consistently have been dishing out the ass kickings.
Yeah, but not when you got a knockout stage.
No, I've changed. You've changed my mind again now, Sean.
Can I ask you a question? So, why are we saying that something has to be? We have to draw a line under something, right now. What's not to say that you can't start doing things again in September, October, finish things off, take a break, and then implement a new global schedule or calendar or whatever.
Double or quits.
I like that. That's good.
So look, I'm sure whatever solution we get out of this, it won't be for a lack of trying for the most inventive and creative ways to navigate this. And look, this is us trying to talk about the small part of our world, and you can talk about people probably need sport back in their lives, for that morale boost, etc., and all that kind of stuff. And I'm biased, I would agree with that. But at the same time, there are people in all aspects of life, business, medical, science. Everybody is trying to think, how do we overcome COVID-19?
Yeah, do you know what? There's one of our listeners has made a real good point here, Lorcan Murphy. The one team that we haven't asked you or thought about is, would Leinster want it? And Lorcan Murphy says, I'd rather we earn it than be given it. Nobody would respect us for that. And I would feel the same. Well, we haven't won it. So you may as well, contrary to your point, Paul, you may as well say, well, nobody win it. Because you get it's not a worthless medal. You think, well, we haven't really won it. So what's the point, Until we've done it and won it, you won't have felt that you've earned it. So it's a good point, actually. Fans are different, aren't they?
Yeah, they just want it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I keep changing my mind every 2 minutes. This is a nightmare.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
Paul's head is firmly stuck in the washing machine now, isn't it?
Yeah, I can't think what the right answer is, because I think it's different with Leinster because they've been so dominant. But then, like you're saying, it's a one-off game, and anything can happen.
You just be hopeful that when you get to that murder trial, there's a couple of jurors are easily swung as you are, right? That's all I'm saying.
I know, exactly. Imagine me on a jury. My attention span.
So Tim Horan was also talking this week. Paul, you're particularly happy to see Tim Horan speak out about Super Rugby and how it should be made up.
Yeah, I watch a lot of Super Rugby, and the way that the Pacific Islands aren't part of it officially as a team I think it is a real tragedy, and one of the biggest in sport, really. If you look at any team in any country, the amount of Pacific Island players that play in those, and then you compare that to the Super Rugby squads in Australia and New Zealand in particular, obviously, and the amount of those guys that are born or have got really good claims to be playing for Pacific Island nations, it looks really unfair that they haven't got one. And I don't know how it would work, and the finances are tricky. But, Super Rugby is a league that takes risks more than any other. They play across an entire hemisphere, Argentina to Japan and down. The delays, the flights, the time delay, the TV scheduling, everything in that league is a gamble. And I think that getting a Pacific Island nation as a team that isn't a gamble to me. I think that's one of the easiest decisions to make, and it's got to happen. And I genuinely think it will. And I think it'll take off, really. I think there'll be a lot of players, particularly coming to the end of their career, who'd love to go to a Super Rugby franchise with their sort of DNA in there. I think there'd be a lot of young players who could obviously bring in some of the development players from around the world even. I think it's a no-brainer. I think it's got to happen. And it's only a matter of time that it will.
Yeah, I'm going to pull in a comment from Frankie Van Wilder.
What a great name.
Player welfare and rugby as a product both need addressing. This lockdown could be the catalyst to a global season or some other structure that rejuvenates the sport. I mean, this is actually giving a lot of people across different industries an opportunity to, if not reset, certainly readjust and say, why is it that we do the things that we do? Okay.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, we have said before in this pod that there will be clubs that crash and burn and go out of business to this. If it doesn't happen, it'll be a minor miracle, right? That is not a big problem in the big scheme of things, but that's going to impact people's livelihoods. But it does offer opportunity at the same time to think differently. And maybe this is one of those things where we can go, well, would that stimulate a different kind of interest in one of our key competitions around the world?
Yeah, well, yeah. I totally agree. I mean, the Pacific Island Super Rugby team is one thing, and I agree with Paul. If that you only got a list of 15 names in their starting lineup, it would be mouth-watering. But with regards to how we view in the game, I spoke to Dan Bigger a week or two ago, and he's enjoying the break from getting bashed about. Now they will put themselves, it's what they do, it's what they pay to do, and they will put themselves out and they'll train hard. But this sort of coincidental break is just giving them a bit of physical and mental downtime that they wouldn't normally have. So I'm really excited to see these guys coming back on the paddock. What are they going to produce? It's going to be gladiatorial. They're going to be fresh. And it's made us think a little bit about how much we've missed the game. The game that we covered and we maybe take for granted. Now we're probably realizing how much it means to us, how much it means to broadcasters, to people's lives, to people's livelihoods. And you know what? Even look at us now. Look at us, the way we discuss it and broadcast it. Adam's just gone through the stratosphere with his technical abilities during this time.
It's like a Hollywood producer these days.
Sorry, I love how just exactly when Sean said that, my camera went frozen. I just had to restart the little for all of the technical wizardry, I've managed to hook up. The actual camera that I'm using for this needs a bit of an upgrade. So on my to-do list. But thank you very much, Sean.
Yeah, but Sean, you're right. I mean, you're getting so bored, you're starting to do analysis on old games, and the videos are getting posted. So
that's a ridiculous way to sell this, McGeady. They are instant classics. Okay, they are instant.
That could be the last time you're seen on this podcast, McGeady.
A very, very good point, Paul. Very good. I think your chance to shine is coming up. You could sit in the host chair with your odd hair.
I'm not doing that. Oh, not me. You know what I'm like with tech, Adam. I was 25 minutes late for the first three.
So this week, Leinster Scarlets?
Yeah, we did Leinster Scarlets. So for anyone who's just hasn't seen it yet. So what we did about 2-3 weeks ago, we picked out about 40 plus games from the start of the 2018-19 season up to the half season we've had so far, and just kind of put the best ones that we think that have a lot to offer up there. So you just go to pro14.rugby and go to the TV section, quick sign up, and then you got access to full match replays, all this sort of stuff. But to celebrate this, every week we're trying to run at least 2 live streams. So one of the latest ones we had up was we actually had the Scarlets Dragons game from Judgment Day last year. That was a belter. And but we've put up Scarlets Leinster from round 2, 2018-19. And this is a game locked and loaded, about 29-30 internationals. These teams going at it hammer and tongs a couple of months after Leinster had been pretty comprehensive in their dishing of Scarlets in the Guinness Pro 14 final. And what we've done is we've got some great we've worked with the guys at Coach Paint. They provide these graphics for broadcasters and stuff like that. So they've really helped Sean's analysis with our own in-house analysts bring this all to life. And it's been getting rave reviews on our social media channels and stuff like that. It's highest engaged videos, and you know, what better time to do a shameless plug? And with your permission, Mr. McGeady.
But before you put it on, what I will say is this: they really are. I'm a rugby geek, right? Admittedly, but they're worth watching for one reason: is that they're properly prepared and thought of. So they're not done at half time in a rush like most of that stuff we see, and it's, you know, you've got the 2 minutes and you can't really tell. These have been thought about properly by a genuine, like, elite coach, and they, you know, you can tell the effort that's gone into them. So I think they're a different class.
Yeah. Well, Paul, I'm just going to mute you while this plays because there's a bit of Hadley Parks action. So
okay,
lock the door.
Wise choice, good man. Let me just shut the door.
The Scarlets have their very own dynamic duo in attack, and in Wales scrum half they have a real sniping threat. But Gareth Davies always seems to have Hadley Parks and his winger in attendance, just offering support to create half gaps for him to break into the 22. His vision at the back of mauls is superb. Just look at him eyeing what Leinster have to offer in that corridor, and are there mismatches available? The timing of when to run is very important. This time it's winger Tom Pridey in support, who gets a good clear out on James Ryan. And the Scarlets love to attack from deep in the second minute. Look at Davis's run, his cheek line of support as Hadley Parks is prepared to run from deep. As James Cubby Boy Davis gets the ball in the wide channel, a la Scarlets 3-pod forward wide attack, Davis is ahead of the game. Parks gets a second touch from deep. Davis is now on the inside, eyeing where the space is, and Johnny McNichol, the wing, is on the outside. Parks gives it to the New Zealand-born winger, and if only he'd given it to Davis, it's a certain try. The Scarlets have 3 forwards in attendance in between the 50-metre channels, with the 10 behind. Another forward run, a decoy on the outside, creates space for Parks. But just look at Davis's run again, way ahead of the game and looking for that inside support. The movement inside now creates a mismatch as it's Tig Furlong against Hadley Parks. The centre takes on the prop, and Davis's line of run gets him over the line, only to be held up on this occasion. But it's on turnover that the Scarlets come alive. Hadley Parks running backwards on a 45-degree angle, as he should. Davis finding himself in midfield. But it's the vision of the scrum half now, looking ahead after his pass, that makes him get on the end of yet another passage of play. Parks, through the corner of his eye, sees a mismatch as the Leinster players shift across field, and the master poacher is again on the inside to this time get his try.
That's some nice work, Mr. Holley.
That's fantastic.
I love doing it. I absolutely love doing it. I mean, Paul's right, you know, for anybody who's interested in that sort of stuff, and we're getting good traction on it. It takes a couple of things. It takes a bit of a trained eye, but it also takes a bit of experience to know what you're looking for. And I'm lucky. I've watched so many games, coaching sessions, that I've almost got some schema, some patterns in my mind, and I see them as they happen. So it's important that I clutch things together in some themes, and that they are relevant to the outcome of the game, and then they're portrayed in such a way that they're interesting, they're not too long, and my narrative tells the story. So that, you know, all that considered, with Jacob and Paul from Guinness Pro 14 analysis team, it takes a long time for just, what was that, 2.5 minutes out, I think, something like that.
Yeah.
But they're really important things, because the human brain, the short and long-term memory, can't remember too much from games live, let alone from 2018, let alone from last week. And so to clutch it together in those themes that have a massive impact is important then for people to see, well, I can see that now, or I saw that, I told my mate that, you know. So I really enjoy it.
Yeah, it's great. It's good. Sorry, I was just going to say, what's really interesting looking at that with Gareth Davis and the cheat line that you see those nines take, is it makes you realise how important getting over the gain line is in that wider channel. Because if too many people take that cheat line, they're all in front of the ball then, aren't they? And they've all got to come.
Has to be really fit and reactive and make good decisions. You know, it's become a well-known thing now. It's because of analysis. You know, it's things we would coach nines to do, and there's lots of things like that we can to bring to the party.
Yeah, that's why you sit on a 9 when he's been involved in the previous bit of play. You stop him running.
You hold on to his socks. You grab the ankle. Yeah.
Proper
we can
order.
see how type of player you are, McGeady. Yeah, no. It's interesting actually, because tomorrow morning or tomorrow lunchtime, I think. So Sean's done a piece on the game we live streamed actually before we were live streaming tonight. We're basically live broadcast TV channel now. But we had Cardiff Blues 34, Glasgow Warriors 38. That was on earlier on tonight, and so like the stats alone in this one just blow the mind. 10 tries, nearly 1,200 meters. Gained by both teams, nearly 70 defenders beaten. This was not a game for the purists of the Iron Curtain, I'll say that much. But you know what we did is I asked, went through it, and Sean's picked out just 2 set piece tries from both teams. That it's a helter skelter game, but actually there's some real surgical precision in it, and it's great to see. So what Sean's pointing out around Gareth Davies running those cheat lines, knowing where the space should open up because where his team is. You see in this game Ali Price doing the same thing for Glasgow Warriors, and it's a position that I think in the Guinness Pro 14 we're really, really well stocked. I think we're super stocked out wide in the back row, but I think the nines, and like you could even say Ali Price may not even be the best scrum half in Glasgow Warriors, because you've got George Horn there, who is absolutely electric. So yeah, it's great seeing these things come together, and hopefully as the series evolves, and me and Sean have already spoken about it, that there's stuff not making it into these videos, but actually we'll come back to, and all of a sudden we'll have this is why Jared Evans is so good, or this is why Leinster are so good, and it won't necessarily be match specific. So look, if you're listening and you want to go back, see some games, maybe some games involving not your team, but we'll pick games that we think will entertain and maybe open your eyes to a few bits that you didn't know, and then Sean will enlighten everyone else afterwards. So,
well, the Glasgow Blues game was a real opportunity with the 2 tries that I picked out to show some of the detail in the prep and the coaching that goes on, and the knock-on effect. Some people see a break from a scrum, it's a great bit of footwork on magic. Well, there's actually a lot more detail that goes to it. This, where the players are standing, how they're grouped, the timing of the movements, how the open side wing is so far out to drag a certain player out to allow some space for somewhere else, how that has a knock-on effect to the defense. And there's lots to this one. I really enjoy doing that one. So, have a little look.
Wicked.
So there's so many good scrum halves and wings. Now, Adam, you sent me a bit of work that Opta did for you, compiling a list with some magic formulas of the top 10 Guinness Pro 14 from the season that was played, right? The top 10 players from the season so far, however we want to describe it. Many contemporaries will be very pleased that in that top 10, they've identified 9 forwards and 1 back.
Yeah, look at that.
Okay, I'm going to run through these. Duan van der Merwe, Paul Boyle, Tane Basham, Arno Botha, Uzra Kasim, Max Deegan, Pierre Schumann, Ollie Cracknell, Giovanni Licata, and Jared Butler. go into that a bit more. Yeah, I'm really, really intrigued by the formula that they're using here, and I'd actually love to get one of the Opta lads in to drill into it a bit.
I'm sure we can get Opta Johnny on himself.
That'd be wicked.
If
it would be good.
Supporting glasses off. Actually, I'm very impressed that he came up with a formula that didn't account for all the Ulster players being involved.
Well, it's damn lies and statistics, isn't it? You know, I spent years working this sort of thing out, and you'll notice lots of back rowers in this, number 8s, 7s, and so on. And so the formula that Opta Johnny's probably come up with revolves around carries, tackles, percentage of missed tackles, positive carries, and defenders, and so on. So if you're poor old Josh Adams out on the wing in January, December, he's not going to get a lot of touches unless the Blues are playing like they did in that Glasgow game. Jared Butler, on the other hand, is going to be involved heavily every game. Connacht work on around about a 50% possession territory, so he's going to be involved around the ball as one of their principal ball carriers, and he's going to be involved a hell of a lot in tackling as one of their principal tacklers. So whatever formula Johnny's come up with here, it involves a lot of them. Where we got to probably stand out and step back and look at is where, yes, Duan van der Merwe has been one of the standout performers. They bring him off the wing. He makes searing breaks. So a lot of meat is made. He'll be in there for that reason. But the standout guy is you've got a prop in there. You've got Schoeman. You've got Pierce Schoeman of Edinburgh. And for him, if we're working around those bases, those formulas that Opta Johnny's put together, for him to be in this top 10 speaks massive volumes, doesn't it? Outside of the set piece, what this guy can do and how
he carries a lot,
he is.
doesn't he? He carries a lot of ball. Yeah, I mean, Van der Merwe for me has been the player of the season, so it's no surprise. As soon as he came up, I was like, yeah, that's that done. I think it was good to see Kassim on there because he had a couple of patchy seasons for the Scarlets. First season is what I mean. So the one I was surprised by was Ollie Cracknell because he
carries them all. You know, he'll be the biggest carrier, but average yards made won't be very high. He won't make many line breaks. He won't miss many tackles. So it'd be interesting to get Johnny on to find out what this formula is.
Yeah, I think the one thing I will say, I mean, it's very much the formula has gone in on the flankers, but I mean, it's very hard to look at those 10 players and say, no, I wouldn't put any of them in my team. I mean, like, and even glad to see that the stats are bearing out somebody like Giovanni Licata, who he's a raw player, but he's very effective. And if things could progress at Zebra, if they could grow in any way, shape, or form, like we've seen from Benetton, people would recognize a guy like Licata more. But he's a super player and a guy who, if was picked up by another team in the Guinness Pro 14, would instantly get a lot more recognition,
Yeah. Do you know what I think was interesting about this formula that we're talking about? And this is a question for Sean, and it's a player that I've often spoken about with fans, with Wales and the Ospreys, was James King. And he was always one of those players who didn't do anything particularly flashy. He was always on the fringes of the Welsh squad, but was always a starter and the kind of player of the season for the Ospreys. And was he almost that formula, Sean, that he didn't seem to be doing an awful lot that you'd spot on TV, but if you were the coach, you were picking him every single time? It's almost the James King formula, that.
Well, you've got to have what I tend to call glue guys. You've got your standouts. A lot of people on our live comments are mentioning Max Deegan. He's gold. Max Deegan is gold dust. He's elite stuff. Great ball carries, good set piece. Explosive, put big tackles in, try scorer, assists. So there we go. There, Max Deegan's definitely in there. Absolutely, Amy. But for him to function, somebody like Rhys Ruddock has to be thereabouts, because you can't have Max Deegan and Tyg Byrne and say, I'm trying to think, say a Sean O'Brien in a back row. You need to have somebody there who's going to be the glue, who's going to do the hard yards. That's where your Ollie Cracknell comes in, Licata. That's where those guys come in. And James King was one of them, a numbers guy, carries a lot, hits a lot of rucks, makes a lot of tackles, catches kickoffs, is using the line out, pushes hard in the scrum. There's all those unseen things. And Rhys Ruddock has had so many caps for Ireland because of that, because the good coaches know that he does the unseen things very, very well and allows the others to function.
Rhys Ruddock is the master of the 1 yard carry that draws in 3 men.
Yeah.
Right? Which, if you're looking at stats after a game, you won't see it. You'll just see, well, that's another carry, 1 yard. Well, actually, if you're at the game and you're looking at tape, those kind of carries can set up a couple of phases.
But
20 carries to 14 yards, and you think that's nothing. But he's put 3 players off with injuries, and that's, exactly that.
Like Paul was talking when we were talking about the draft stuff, and Paul was bringing up the thing last week around American football, how running backs are, their value is so low because, they have a limited shelf life because the wear and tear they pick up and stuff like that. But for some running backs, and it's the same like some, rugby players, as long as when they carry the ball, they don't go backwards, they're doing something for your team. Now, if you have 15 of those, you're probably not going very far. But you need 1 or 2 of those guys who just granite-like guys. They'll lock the ball under your arm and they'll make sure that they're creating a bit more time for the guys who've got the skills to go wide, spin it, and do the damage,
Well, that's it. That's exactly it. It's all about time. So there's a bit of a messy breakdown. It gets popped up. Someone like Ruddock, he gets the ball knowing he is going to get absolutely clobbered, but he's going to build that next phase. And that is really, really important because not everything is clean. Not everything is a set move. Not everything is nice and loosey-goosey. But anyway, speaking of American sports, we did some time last week, right, looking at if we were going to draft a new franchise and we were going to do it from Pro 14 teams, who would we pick? And we had our views. You can go back, look at the tape. A new article appeared this week. Adam, I sense someone with a keen interest in American sports behind this, and someone looking to create a bit of divilment in the league. What did you do?
Well, I'll just say I wasn't the one who mocked up the picture of James Lowe in the Munster jersey.
No, it's good.
You've got to see that one to believe it. And the designer we had putting that stuff together was great to just sort of illustrate a bit of the, I suppose you say, the bit of fun that I was having. So
I think it looked like more than somebody who's going to love American sports and somebody who's trying to get a job doing comms in the NFL. It was like a cry for help. That's what it looked like to me. It was a CV.
Right.
It was interesting. How many Leinster picks there were? Says which is the best team, isn't it?
Yeah. Could have been
players.
Could have been more, but just to set it up. So the premise of this piece, and I think it's worth a look, is teams could select any player from a rival team, but they were looking at needs. So not just what you think is the best thing. What is the need you have? So that would be like if you're an NFL team and you're saying, well, actually, we've already got 2 really good quarterbacks or 1 star and 1 good backup. We're not going to pick the star quarterback. We might pick a left tackle. So this is why the first pick in this draft was Tyke Furlong.
Would you like me to kind of read through it and kind of give you the rationale behind a couple of things, and we'll try and be as quick as you can. And boys, please feel free to jump in at every possible opportunity to tell me I'm talking out my backside.
Yeah, we will. We're going to heckle and mock all the way through.
Yeah. Well, the way we did it is first of all ranked the teams from 1 to 14, flipped that to see who'd get the first pick, and the first pick was Zuzu Southern Kings, and There we go. And the pick was in, and biggest need for them identified was Tyke Furlong from Leinster, because these guys actually they've got a little bit of creativity and some speed, and guys who can do a bit of damage in the back line. But in their short period in the Guinness Pro 14 over the last couple of seasons, they hemorrhage penalties in the scrum. So that would have been where I would have detailed their serious need, and I think it's hard to find somebody who's a more productive front rower than Tyke Furlong.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Ospreys fans, you would be delighted to have the number 2 pick, but probably not the reasons why you're picking number 2. And again, maybe some divilment here, but I thought a guy who could really do a job for Ospreys right now is Kaziem from Scarlets. So I think there's a lot of nice complementary pieces at Ospreys right now, but they need a couple of blockbuster ball carriers.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's what they've lacked. They've had a lot of those glue players, workhorse players, Bradley Davis, Dan Lydiard, Ollie Cracknell, James King, all those guys, but they need some go forward, need some big ball carrying, and maybe Kaziem could provide that. Oh, and nicking him from the Scarlets. Wow, that would
become a fan favourite, throwing himself into the stands, making mates. Yeah, that'd be a slow one.
At this stage, I was reading this and going, wow, if this was a real draft, I would be covering this live and going, James Ryan is sliding down the board. He's sliding down the board here.
He's going.
Will he go to Zebre?
No.
Joe, I must admit, when I started reading it, I was thinking, I don't know whether I can get myself into this space to believe this. After I got to the 3rd team, I was thinking, Jesus Christ, what's the 4th pick going to be?
Well, funny you should mention that. So we get to the 4th pick, which is Dragons. Dragons, as we know, coming along quite nicely. Few key signings made for next season, which we like to see. But as you're reading through the Dragons and their needs, we get some breaking news. There's a trade. So Gene Ryan reckons, look, I've got some young players in the back row and the second row here, but I'm losing Corey Hill. So who do I know who really could do with one of those blockbuster second rows? You guys all talked about it last week. You said money can't buy them. So he gives his mate John Mulvihill a shout just down the road, says John comes around to him and says, look, we'll trade places, because John Mulvihill wants to get James Ryan as a Cardiff Blue. So he sends Seb Davies and Matthew Morgan to Rodney Parade. And Dragons then still get to pick number 6. I think that's a brilliant trade. So so at number 4, Cardiff Blues select James Ryan. We'll try and skim through some of these here as well. Then at number 5, we send Robbie Henshaw from Leinster to Benetton. Again, they need somebody who can do a bit of damage, a lot of complementary pieces.
So are we just to be clear, are we saying that Leinster could potentially not get given a trophy and lose Tyke Furlong, James Ryan, and Robbie Henshaw?
Still win it and lose half the squad.
And Lamore and James Lamore.
Yeah. The COVID diaries. This is how long we're into lockdown, isn't it? So then Dragons with their number 6 pick traded with the Cardiff Blues. They're pretty much set in the pack, I think, at this point. So they go and get a playmaker, Duan van der Merwe from Edinburgh. To be
imagine that.
Yeah, I think he'd dovetail well with some of the guys they've got in the back line there. So pick number 7, we got the Toyota Cheetahs. They are already assembling a bit of a squad here. Franz Stein going to return there. They've kept some of the key players that are involved this year, and there's talk of them bringing back a couple of more box next year. I thought the guy that would go really well at Cheetahs would be Bundy Aki. You've got all these really fast flyers around the place, but you just give the ball to Aki, let him do a bit of destruction, and then he's got the hands and he's got the offloading game for the likes of Reno Smith, Ravs McSwaney to just run riot off him. So that's genuinely something I would love to see for a little bit of time. Bundy Aki.
Adam, Amy's just said via a question, if Tag Furlan and Henshaw leave in Leinster, she's no longer supporting them. So you've caused a lot of problems here with this fantasy pick.
Yeah. Well, to be honest with you, Edinburgh and Leinster were pretty vocal on social media about this article. They were not happy. Pick number 8, Glasgow Warriors in the middle of the selections there. Johnny McNichol from Scarlets.
Oh, God.
Replacement for Stuart Hogg. Johnny McNichol is absolutely outrageous. The number of tries he's scored in his short time with Scarlets, and I think we've seen with Wales, he's still adjusting to the international game. But geez, if he gets comfortable there, like the way he is with Scarlets, he'll be such an addition for Wales. But he'll be playing his in this world. He'll be playing his rugby up in Glasgow. Pick number 9 was Connacht. We sent Bill Matta from Edinburgh there, so Edinburgh really not happy losing Bill Matta and Duan van der Merwe. Scarlett's at number 10, and this is a guy who I thought could have gone higher, but the needs weren't necessarily there. Marcel Coetzee from Ulster.
Could have gone higher. I love
Could
that.
have gone higher, yeah. Pick number 11, which is Ulster. Jordan Larmour from Leinster. I think he's a bit of a live wire who could absolutely spark things. Again, Leinster just losing these big name players here in this.
Imagine him in Stockdale.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. You know, and the funny thing I was thinking, because Leinster are picking last, I was thinking, could we do it in a way that Leinster could just take one of their players back?
Yeah.
Oh, that would be spoiling.
Yeah.
And which one would they take?
Yeah.
James Ryan.
In a pick number 12, we had Munster, and this is the one I really had a bit of development with, taking James Lowe from Leinster. I think they're pretty much set with Dialande and Snyman joining up next year. You've got Peter O'Mahony, had CJ Stander in this world. They've got Conor Murray, so I thought a finisher and somebody who can really make an impact like Lowe would be excellent for them. And then again, being a bit playful, Leone Nakarawa from Glasgow Warriors going to Edinburgh at pick number 13. And then this was the one I found really interesting. If you were to take a player from another team for Leinster, like, where is the need? And the only guy I thought who could fit in here, you know, who could probably take somebody else's jersey in that team, I thought Josh Adams from Cardiff Blues. And he's a perfect replacement for James Lowe, who's gone down to Thomond Park.
Or maybe a hooker.
Situation.
I think they might take a hooker because they've got a young player coming through. Would they go for a senior hooker above Cronin? I don't know.
I could go with that, but one thing I'd like, if you think about resetting what we do with rugby, right? So a variant of this where a team can only lose one player, right?
Amy's gonna switch off now. She's had enough of this.
Wait, I think we've made Amy drink.
That's not too bad.
I think you're right, though, and I think it's unfair to absolutely pillage one particular team. There has to be.
Yeah.
Look, you can only take a maximum of 3 from any one team. And if you're lower down the draft system, then tough. You know, we should have done so well last year.
Or so you can pick one, right, and then that team gets to protect 2 players.
Battleships.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. This is how much we're missing rugby. That's all I have to say. Now, good work, Adam. That was good and well done.
Yeah, it was good. Although I will say, if COVID does end the world, they'll look back and that little chunk of the podcast will be the bit they say people started losing their minds. We'll be in it. We'll be an example. They'll say this is when people started to lose it. And when they created a fantasy draft in a sport where it doesn't exist. I just thought I'd say.
That's
April
fair.
29th, book it.
This seems like the best way to continue to Paul's own unique section of our show, which is what's weird this week with Paul Williams.
Well, it is a bit hit and miss. The first one was good with the turkey egg. I think last week was a bit boring, but this week sounds boring. It's to do with paint. So this week I was thinking, when you paint a wall, you obviously leave a layer of paint on the wall. And that layer of paint has a thickness, right? However thick it is. And then it made me think, how long would it take to paint yourself into a room to the point where you couldn't move? So every time you put a coat on there, so eventually, how long would it take until you were painting literally around yourself?
Right, so the fantasy draft was apparently when everyone started losing their mind.
Yeah, listen, I was like this in August. Yeah, so that was this week but I'll look it up. I'll find out for next week.
You live in a different world.
No, it's not nice in my house, Sean.
Oh.
Like I said, my poor wife, she's the filter for this normally.
And she's wandering around going, why are the rooms? Why do they seem smaller?
I don't like Paul crying in that room. Yeah. This toilet's smaller, Paul. Nice paint, though.
Oh god! I must say that the fun with this so far has actually been seeing the comments coming in as well.
Yeah, it's
so
good.
Thank you everyone for interacting, and also I really enjoyed the fact that I discovered halfway through that we could pop these comments up on the screen, so that's even better. Definitely pays to have a decent profile picture and not just be a picture of an egg or something like that. So yeah, I think where the point, Andy, where we normally have listener questions, we can probably have a quick scroll through and see if there's anything we missed in the comments.
Yeah, that's kind of a signal to get your really good comments in now. So a couple of weeks back, we talked about podcasts and sports books that we thought were really good. We're going to do something slightly different now, which is non-sports books that we think are really good. I'll open it up to Sean. Sean, what non-sport book would you recommend to someone who's just trying to get through the next phase of lockdown?
I'm definitely a podcast man and a sports book man. However, if I'm to pick up another book, it would be on holiday with my family, where I get a bit of chance to lie in the sun. And what I tend to migrate to are Wilbur Smith books. When I was much younger, I read a Wilbur Smith book, and it was something that captured me really quickly because it was quite vivid the way he wrote, and he was writing about South Africa, and I'd been to South Africa, and I could almost feel myself being there. So, there's a couple of books. He's written quite a lot, Wilbur Smith, but there's one, Monsoon is a real good one. And then there's the follow-up to that, I think it's called Assegai, which is particularly good because it goes around a lot of the sort of Turkish, Istanbul area, and then a lot of the markets, and they're always centered around a family. And I just find them really, really enjoyable books. I don't put them down. Other than that, and I'm going to go completely left field, the last non-sport book I read was about the Crays, Ronnie and Reggie. I really enjoyed that too.
Mr. Redmond, I'm sure you have a gem.
What's this?
I kind of don't, but I do have. There's a series of books, and a friend of mine passed a book on to me about maybe 10 or 15 years ago. There's a whole series of them, and they're fictional books based on history. So you actually can learn a bit, but there's a lot of lunacy in them, and I'm not sure if anyone's ever come across them, but they're the Flashman series, and they're about this fictional English soldier from the Victorian era who is a total coward at heart, and in the first book ends up somehow getting sent off to do serious business. And in every situation, he's trying to just escape with some young lady and trying to run in the opposite direction from where all the swords and guns and horses are and stuff like that. But each book kind of travels through different aspects and big historical events, whether it's the Wild West or the Charge of the Light Brigade and stuff like that. It probably comes with a little bit of a health warning. There's some not very PC references in it at times.
It comes with a massive health warning. It's so for anyone who hasn't read Flashman. Do you remember the Rick Mile character, Lord Flashheart?
Yes, Flash by name, Flash by nature.
When they wrote that character, it is almost certainly based on Flashman. It is
really
not PC, but it's very, very funny.
Yeah, there's some. It's you probably need to read the first 4 or 5 chapters of any of the books and you get a flavor for it. And funny enough, there's little asterisks and little notes as you go along, and then you can go to the back of the book and it'll actually expand on the historical reference and stuff like that. So yeah, you can get a few laughs and maybe learn learned something as well. I actually will say on a more serious note, and I'm sure you'll all be shocked given my podcast and TV show recommendations. The book I have actually recently started reading is American Moonshot. So it's kind of, JFK and the space race and really placing you in that moment in time of, was this all about getting to the moon? No, it was more about we can't let communism seem to be the dominant scientific force in the world and stuff like that. So
I listened to after a few weeks back, you were talking about 13 seconds to the moon, 30 seconds to the moon,
13 minutes to the moon.
30 minutes to the moon. I listened to. There's a couple of them, isn't there?
Yeah.
And really enjoyed them. The drama, the live drama. But talking non-PC, what I'm watching at the moment.
Hang on now, Sean. This is
honestly,
we're after 10 o'clock. We are on the internet. It's okay.
No, it's Afterlife 2.
Oh yeah,
with Ricky Gervais. I mean, it's so clever. And there's a guy, I forget his name. He plays the psychologist or marriage counselor. He used to be Dennis Pennis. Do you remember Dennis?
Oh yeah.
It's so non-PC, but it's hilarious. It's brilliantly written. If you get a chance, go back. They're only 27 minutes an episode, and they're brilliantly written. Watch the first series, then watch this one. It's brilliant.
Right, Williams, you're teed up.
Right, I have taken this moment to announce my anti-book stance, which is why I didn't come clean earlier. So I've got a bit of a problem with books.
You can't read.
Hang on a second.
When you consider that I write for a living, right, in both jobs, so in advertising, rugby, and I am at the moment writing a rugby sitcom, I don't like reading. And I think there's a snobbishness with reading books that I think they are a bit outdated. I think they're a little bit like playing the spoons and tap dancing and the theatre. In that they were good once, but things have moved on. So you don't need to read anymore because you can have the same information via TV and podcast. And that isn't to sound like I see McGeady there. Look at him. He looks like he wants to revolt. But you can get the same information in a better way with audio and visual. So I am
William trashes books.
I like that. This is like Bill O'Reilly. So I am very anti-books. My wife's known this for a long time. And when you asked earlier, what's your favorite book? I thought, right, tonight's the night. I'm going public with this. Yeah. So I'm very anti and always have been very anti-book. And I think there's a horrible snobbishness about books. And this weirdly feels like book shaming.
Live to Andrew McGeady.
Look at McGeady's face.
I'm struggling to deal with this. But people take in information differently, right?
Yeah, they do. I know.
So, for example, one of the big problems in podcasts and in any audio medium is actually how we share that, because it's very hard unless you have a really, really crack transcription service. That's reliable. It's very hard to share some of the content from that. Because you have to actually listen, right? But I can scan words very, very fast. So
I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at the title underneath you.
Yeah, I'm stunned. Yeah, this is tabloid journalist time.
This is brilliant.
But genuinely, I love podcasts, but I love reading. One of the biggest things I've tried to do in the last couple of years, especially, is I got out of the habit of reading at night. And it's very, very good for me. So I brought a couple because there's a theme here, right?
Right, here we go.
So first one is, this is Matthew Walker, Why We Sleep.
Wow.
And there's a lot of dog ears there, right? And if there's a lot of dog ears in a book I have, it's a very good book because there's stuff I want to come back to someday. It's absolutely brilliant. It could change your life.
Have a look at the title, McGeady.
This is what we need.
Why he's better than William. Book shame.
Yes.
This is book shaming. No, I agree. So is that literally about the need? Is that about the need for sleep?
That is about why we need to sleep.
See, I would read that.
Why sleep is good for it, right? And particularly at the moment, like when we I know I went through a stretch during lockdown at the very start of, I went for about a week and a half of really, really bad sleep. And I actually picked that book back off the shelf to go back to some of those dog ears and go, well, actually, what habits could I get myself back into now? Right. And I think you could ask my wife, say, have I obeyed all of them? No. But in my head, I started to get that going again. I cannot recommend that book enough. It's incredible. And certainly the normal that we all get into about, I only need 5 hours sleep. Yeah, no, we don't. We need more. And it's great. Right. Now, next one. If you like,
are you sleeping more?
No, but my sleep.
Because you're up reading.
6 hours on the books.
Sleep has changed with no commute. I can sleep a little bit later. That's not necessarily a good thing, because then I get onto the laptop and I'm sitting at the same desk, not getting up for a lot of the day. It's not good for me. That's not good for a lot of people. No. But look, I'm lucky. I'm still getting paid, right? So not complaining.
And you're in a scene from Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
You want to see what I had to do to this room to get an actually, fairly prime. Right. This one.
Half a goat in that cupboard.
Yeah. Oh. John McPhee on the writing process. That's for nerdiness. If you like factual descriptive writing, that is an amazing book by one of the great descriptive writers, John McPhee. Draft number 4. Last one. This is a doorstop. Okay.
Goodness
so
me.
If you need something to get stuck into that is definitely not about sport and you just want to switch off from that sort of stuff, this is called The Prize. Sorry. I'm just sticking up to the camera. And this is by Daniel Jurgen. And it's one of the best history lessons you'll ever get on why the world is how it is. And what is it? It's a book about oil. It's simply about oil. What it is, where it comes from, what we've all done as different societies around the world to control it. It's epic and it's brilliant. And it's actually quite newsworthy at the moment because of the way the oil price dropped in America sub-zero last week. I'm done. I had the.
These sound amazing. Now, if somebody can just podcast that lot and send it to me, I'm off.
So, a serious question, Williams. Do you listen to audio books then instead?
Yeah. Do you know, if I'm up, you and I talk about mental health quite a lot, and because in my day job in advertising, I think a lot, right? So I'm always thinking about ideas. That's all I do is think, and then with writing, all you're doing is thinking. So I find reading not painful but annoying, because I have to use my brain to imagine things. So I'd rather it was all in front of me. So that's why I like podcasts and video, because my brain then can have a spell and I can just have everything presented. Because everyone always says, reading's good for your imagination. Well, I'm sick of my imagination. So I like it off, and then I like it all to be beamed straight in through my eyes and ears. That's the reason why.
That's really interesting, because I'd be the opposite. So I'm dealing in very straightforward stuff a lot of the day, and I need to completely switch things around and also not look at a screen.
Yeah. See, weirdly, one of my favorite things to do, I don't know whether we're overrunning here, it's got nothing to do, but is string tennis rackets. Right. So for me, it turns my mind off completely. So I string my own rackets, and for some people in my club.
But you know what I've just been
get paid as a taxman listening.
This last 3 weeks, I've been doing jigsaws.
There we go. Yeah, there we go. It turns your brain off because you can't think about anything else but that jigsaw.
Sorry if you tuned in for rugby chat.
Yeah, but this is a mental health's a big thing during Corona, and what switches your brain off is really important.
If anyone can recommend a rugby jigsaw, 1,000 to 2,000 pieces, I'll be all over it.
I tell you, but that could be the next stage of brand Holley. The jigsaws. Yeah.
Some of the photographs I've got. Rugby one.
Yeah, there we are. Holley's jigsaws.
We'll
extreme gardening, but more of that. We'll do a full episode on that next week, lads.
We'll do a quick run through some comments here. Let's see. Have you
got the ability to pop them up on screen, Andy?
I have no idea. Maybe you pick out the comments if it's easier for you.
My favorite one is from Jack O'Grady. Adam Redmond looks dead.
Yeah, this is all huge night. The amount of
That
effort
must be
I
when.
to set this up, my camera placement and everything is just not.
I think that's when you must have frozen on screen.
The other thing as well is that this particular view, I've been on a couple of Zoom and Google meetings for quizzes and all that, and anytime I dip my head down, my mates always ask if I've put my head in the Ballo Shino. Which is if you know your Simpsons.
That's mate's view.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good, friends.
Here's one. I know there's some Gethin Jenkins fans here. Yeah, apparently Frankie Van Wilder says that Garen Jenkins. Maybe he means
the hooker.
He created the perfect pick and flop. Yeah, he wasn't renowned for his big ball carrying Garen, but he was certainly a bit of a pit bull. 58 caps for Wales under the Graham Henry era. That's where he really shone. But had a good duel with Rob McBride, ironically. They were together at Swansea, believe it or not, for a while. And then Robin went to the Scarlets. But the pick and flop, Garen Jenkins.
Can I ask one question? I know we're overrunning slightly. And it's something I was going to bring up and ask Sean earlier about sort of the pick and flop.
You're going to need to leave a comment, Paul. This is the comment section.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. I just went off. Sorry. But I had a proper rugby question there.
Oh, please do.
And it was, do you think, Sean, and everybody, that at test level, being taught to retain the ball is more important than looking for the offload? Where you see an awful lot of players who at club level used to carry quite upright. Andy Powell being a good example. Used to carry really upright sevens player, look for the offload. And Ryan Jones, another really good example, used to be quite, and then at test level, we're almost looking for the 4-yard carry, really safe ball retention, two hands in the chest. Is that a difference between club and elite? Or club and test, sorry.
I think it's a different player and a different coaching style, mate. I think players want to offload, players want to express themselves. It's the best way to break a line. Best way, unless you got, a Shane Williams, a Jordan Lama in your side, then, to get through the line, if you can, somebody who can offload, and then more importantly, somebody who can read and support from depth and receive that offload. I mean, some of the best wins, sides I've been involved in have been offloading sides. Yeah. And it's a great brand of rugby. It's high skill. And I think the pick and go as well, to coin that phrase there, the old pick and go is something that you can use to condense a defensive line, because they dump and fan. You watch Leinster now, they're very, very smart. They don't compete at the breakdown unless it's nailed on, Van der Vliet can get at it. They just fan out. So in an opportune moment, you can pick and go. You can coach that to either brush away potential defenders one way, or you can split them open. I'm going away from the camera. You can split them either side and shepherd them either side to create a gap up the middle. But yeah, I love the offload, but it's instinctive. But you've got to coach anticipation and support as well. And look, at international rugby, mate, it's the best players.
Yeah.
So they are the most skilled players. So therefore, they attempt it a bit more, I think.
I found one more question in the comments, and then Andy, I'll hand the reins back over to you. But I think this is a decent one actually here. So John Bissett would like to see change to substitutes by allowing only substitute for blood and injuries instead of wholesale subs like we have at the moment. I think there's an in between here, and I think it's been discussed about reducing. Yes, you can still have your 8 guys on the bench, but you can only use 5 of them. Paul, you like fun innovations. What do you think about this type of approach?
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for that, actually. I think that, to me, tired props and tired second rows create gaps. So the more tired, that's why I'm all for more scrummaging, because the more tired you can make props and second rows, the more gaps you'll have, and particularly narrow gaps. So I've always thought that. But then, of course, you have to balance it up then with the player safety thing. So do you want tired props scrummaging and risk an injury? It's the player welfare thing comes first, but I think tired players are exactly what rugby needs. rugby in the last 20 minutes shouldn't be as efficient as it is in the first 20.
Great. It's a great shout. And you know what? We should do this properly.
It's a big topic.
Someone will get a proper segment there, because there's a few different angles here. And you know what? We're not going to do it justice today, right? Because we need to think about it. Because you nailed something right there. Rugby can be very efficient in the last 20 minutes, because there's a lot of people who are emptying their benches, and those benches are emptying themselves, those substitutes, because they're going on to do one job, right? And that doesn't necessarily make it more entertaining.
Yeah.
So let's bring someone else in, because there's some really good research done on a couple of aspects of this.
And Paul, we can't do it justice at this end of the podcast, because Andy has some reading to get to.
He's got a fourth book to unveil, and it's written in Latin.
I'm behind on my reading. I'm taking next week off from the day job. I'm going to get a lot of reading done.
God.
Absolutely.
Yeah, gentlemen, can I just say one thing? I know we're coming close to the end of the show here. I'm very disappointed the one drop that I put a bit of work into today and learned a new skill. Nobody messed up, so I didn't get the chance to drop this one in.
We'll do it live.
Although I did ask a question in the middle of the questions round. You could have banged it in there.
We'll do it live.
There we go. Top producing.
I like it.
Yeah, top producing.
I like it. That's a wrap. We'll call it there. Thank you, Sean Holley. Thank you, Paul Williams. Thank you, Adam Redmond. Thank all of you who've given us some of your time, whether live this evening or listening back. This was Under the Sticks, presented by Big Red Cloud. My name is Andy McGeady. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you soon. He called me cheetah, cheetah, cheetah. Ooh, cheetah, cheetah, cheetah.